Yes, Sir Hairless here. Today we have the winner of our monthly members poll. This is Home Free and it's their cover of Brothers in Arms. Originally by the Dire Straits. I didn't know the song, I didn't know the original, and I decided to do a reaction video on that one, quite spur of the moment. That will be my previous video, so please do check that out if you haven't already. I'm sure there'll be things that I mentioned in that video that I will reference in this. It was a pretty sad song, contemplative I think was the word that I used. Just to repeat some of the context, the original, it was written in 1982 at the time of the Falklands War, and it was released in 1985. Poignant song, poignant lyrics. Let's see what Home Free's take on this song is.
Mist-covered mountains are a home now for me, but my home is the lowlands and always will be.
Goosebumps already.
Someday you'll return to your valleys and your farms, and you'll no longer burn to be brothers in arms. Through these fields of destruction.
Yeah, that's moving. The effects as well that we have of them seeming like ghosts, they're see-through.
Through these fields of...
With this shot being one of the main ones. And the flags of the deceased here, the graves. Oh, war. What a horrible thing. There's some really nice stuff in there, as I'm sure we all know, and I'd like to go over them before I forget, so I'm going to do my first pause here. If you don't want to hear my analysis, go to the timestamp. We're in the same key as the original song, but compared to the original Home Free's introduction, it's much more fluid. There's much more obvious harmony. As I pointed out in my video on the original, they open with this sustained chord, and then there's this descending line down some octaves, and that descending line clashes with the chord that we hear. The staticness in the original is more understandable due to the guitar. The guitar riff is providing the main melodic movement. Home Free do also have something similar, just a bit more subtle. There are very nice lines in there. Some are moving a bit later than others, some with chord changes, some not with the chord changes. Overall, the result is this fluid sound, quite a full sound as well. I like the entries that we get here. First the bass, then the leading tone, then a full chord with everyone else. As we hear the bass first, Tim, his part is a bit more obvious, and what he does next is this drop down, which is really exaggerated because of this. The first time he went up, actually, not down. I also like how they've kept in this line. Just that, very simple, very static. You might say that part is boring because it doesn't really move. I think it's arguably the most important part from a harmonic perspective. It's the part that really binds the harmonies together, and it's also the part that causes a lot of the dissonances we hear, because as it stays and the other parts move around it, causes dissonance and then releases the tension. There was nice vibrato towards the end of that time. Second time, a straight tone, because they're humming. Then we get Tim's entry. Wasn't expecting that. Hello, low, Tim.
These mist-covered mountains.
I can definitely see why they've opted for this and for Tim to open. I mentioned in the original how the opening gives us a sense of freedom with the melody, how it's really quite off compared to the instrument that it's supposedly in unison with.
These mist-covered mountains.
See the rhythms, how free it seems. Home Free's is more rigid, a bit more structured. That's because there's no one else doing the melody. It's just Tim, so it kind of needs to be. Then the end of this phrase.
Now for me, but my home is...
Actually, I think I'll include a clip that I did in my reaction to the original song. The chords used are applicable here. Home Free are using the same harmony, the same chord progression. It's a very natural sounding chord progression, I think. And then the other bit that I want to talk about.
Now for me.
Just there. This is a cadential 6/4. I was going to say it's not really important what it is, but it kind of is for the point I want to make. It's to do with voicing, how Home Free choose who's singing which part and how they move when it comes to these arrangements. So instead of summarising, I'll again include a little clip from the video I did to the original song. It's quite handy doing the original song first, isn't it? The organ chords, they bring with them a sense of closure, I feel, which is pertinent considering the song's subject matter, many lives reaching their close, their end. Just there though, that's kind of why we hear this. That's called a cadential 6/4. Cadential meaning cadence, the end of a phrase or a section. Again, idea of closure coming at the end. It's a very recognizable device in music. And the 6/4 is because what they've done is this note here, the B, is in both of the chords. So you take that shared note, put it at the bottom and it doesn't move, and then notes 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6, that's why it's called cadential 6/4, then both move down one. What we're really hearing is this. The whole infrastructure of this device, the cadential 6/4, as we saw, it's the two upper parts are falling as the lower part stays. Falling, moving closer together, this idea of closure. Home Free have the upper part not falling down but continuing to rise. That's the opposite. It signifies continuation, like it's moving towards something. So we get... And what we're expecting, this last note, that comes in another part, kind of like filling in, allowing the top part to really rise up. Also, instead of just one static note at the bottom, Home Free have two in harmony. It's always interesting, I think, seeing what changes they make in their arrangements. Then we get this bit, a very lovely section, Home Free really making use of having 5 voices for the harmony, because there's no beat, just like in the original, we don't have a beat for the first section of the song.
Your valleys and your farms, and you'll know.
Alright, let's carry on.
These fields of destruction, baptisms of fire, I've witnessed your suffering as the battles raged higher. And though they did hurt me so bad, in the fear and alarm, you did not desert me, my brothers in arms. So many different worlds, so many different suns, and we have just one world, but we live in different ones.
Oh, quite a lot of variants actually that we're seeing for overall an arrangement, a song that doesn't differ too much in its overall infrastructure. Let's go over some of what we've heard there. So we start off with a change to chants. It's a nice change of timbre from Tim, noticeably different. As I say, the kind of arrangement hasn't changed too much, so this is another method of getting some variety in there. There's also a noticeable growth in the sound now, mostly just due to a volume increase.
Through these fields of destruction, baptisms of fire.
Some nice lines coming through again. There are some really nice lines hidden amongst the sounds that we're hearing. One stood out to me there because it caused quite a harsh dissonance. The line went...
Baptisms of fire.
Dissonance on the first note there. And a bit later on, for example, Rob had a line that really stands out.
Raged high.
Just there. And in the next bit, we get this nice homophonic bit. They're singing the same words as each other in the same rhythms, but it's quite bare harmonically compared to some of the really rich harmonies we've been hearing before. And there's one line which really stands out because of this. The notes are these.
It hurt me so bad.
Why that stands out is because it enters on this note, which is the supertonic note number 2 because the chord, and it enters on a dissonance but then quickly resolves, and they have a little trill on it as well. Kind of fun, I guess, and quite an overall solemn bit of music.
The fear and alarm.
These oohs in the backing part, they really remind me of Christmas. Check out my home free Christmas reactions, they'll be in the playlist up here. And speaking of vowel sounds, the impact that just changing the vowel sound can have is really staggering. And how important Tim's bass is. Well, listen to this part. And just when Tim goes down, notice how the sound just changes. When he moves back up, you'll see what I mean. Whoa. Human organ. He's a human organ. We saw some interesting effects applied, this massive reverb type effect.
So many different worlds.
Not something I've often seen from Home Free.
So many different suns.
And the harmony now, as we can see, it's becoming much more juicy, scrunchy.
And we have just one world.
Adding in notes there. When the chord is do. Again, supertonic note number 2 being the real obvious dissonant note.
But we live in different ones.
And that harmony there, in my pentatonics videos, when they do this, I call it quite Imogen Heap-esque. These chords, they're not just juicy and scrunchy, but they're in such a way where if you were to play them on the piano, they would just all be very, very close to each other. Such as the last chord of that phrase. Let's quickly figure this one out.
Different ones.
So we have...
Different ones.
And then if we bring these all together... See this kind of scrunch here. Still no beat either. I feel like perhaps maybe we won't have a beat. I guess we'll see with the final section. There's about 1.5 to 2 minutes left. So let's carry on. But yes, it's very much about the harmonies.
Now the sun's gone to hell, and the moon's riding high. Let me bid you farewell. Every man has to die. starlight, and every line in your palm. We're forced to make war on our brothers in arms.
Ooh, that was an interesting ending. From a harmonic point of view, unexpected chord. There were two kind of passing notes in the middle and then ending on this bare chord without the harmonic substance. Quite powerful though, especially with the image of the grave. Yeah, towards the end of that real chordal section, just fully engaged with it. I think my body maybe went quite still. I felt tingles going all down my arms and my back. Nice arrangement, especially that last bit. Well, a few final things before we wrap up. From where we carried on, we were talking about the change in vowel sounds before and the effect it can have. Well, now they're sticking with the R, but I love the fluidity, how it's just rising up. Lovely top part, falsetto goes to that top E. I think that would be Austin, but honestly, who knows? That could even be Tim. My most recent behind the scenes video over on my Patreon, that was on Chris Rupp's critical reaction to Home Free's All About That Bass. He said that they mostly do put Tim on the bass in their studio recordings, even when Tim has the melody elsewhere, just because, because you might as well. I know there's a lot of contention in the comments on my Home Free videos about who's singing the bass at any one point. Alright, I wanted to say the sudden stops in between the phrases, the silences, the moments of silence, the moments of no music, they hold so much power. Silence really is a very, very powerful tool in music, and it should never be underestimated. Creating these kind of mini sections, and within them other parts stand out a bit more. Such as that part, a little hemiola there that we've not really seen elsewhere. I'll listen to this over and over, each time listening to a different part or a different line. The first one in this bit that stuck out to me is a part that goes... Listen up for that one. Again, someone might hear that and go, that's not an interesting line. Well, I wouldn't argue, I'd just say, well, I think it is. Let's look at it. These are the notes. And if we highlight them all, see how it covers pretty much every note in its path according to the scale. And that initial drop, that's a perfect fourth, and the interval, the drop, it sounds almost bigger than it is because of how tight the rest of the sound is. I felt like we were starting to get some hints maybe at some rhythmic changes, but then the wind comes through, the whistling wind, and the arrangement becomes more barren.
Now the sun's gone to hell.
Very calming, nice harmonies, relatively straightforward.
And the moon's riding high.
And I thought it was a lovely way to end, with these almost closed oohs laid above the humming parts, creates a really cool effect. And the part that I mentioned earlier on, the static one, is that Adam Rupp? It sounds like it. It does sound like it. A slightly nasally tone, pure tone, quite a piercing tone. I love his voice when he sings. I've said it in previous videos. He has a proper group musician's way of singing. That's how I think of it. All about tuning and being part of the core sound rather than being a soloist, quite showy offy. And it's these types of singers when it comes to group singing that are just so important. So overall, this song, what it means, I said in my reaction to the original, it's more than just about specific war, I think, or certain specific wars. And Home Free, in their description, they've written this: the meaning of brothers in arms rings true across more than just when we're at war overseas, but when we're fighting amongst ourselves. Definitely a nice arrangement. It's one of these songs where you don't want to overshadow the message with anything too crazy or out there or complex. So the harmonies, they really weren't that crazy at all. Home Free stayed fairly simple. I don't want to use the word simple. You know what I mean though. I kind of think of it like respectful, bearing in mind the message of the song that they're singing. No beat as well, all about the harmony. Definitely a nice one. A worthy winner of our monthly members poll. If you'd like to vote on these monthly member polls, they're available to absolutely everyone on my Patreon. You don't even need to pay. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Would appreciate a like and subscribe. If you'd like to support me, get access to exclusive perks, you can do so by joining the Patreon linked on the screen now. And if you don't want to commit, then you can buy me a coffee at the link below. And I will see you next time.